I welcome you all to the 9th week of the course on International Investment Law and the Environment. So, we have discussed past investment disputes in the last few weeks, specifically from 6th, 7th, and 8th week onwards. So, I hope by now you have understood how the regulatory measures are being challenged and what are the decisions that are taken by the tribunal. And since we have already completed discussing the investment disputes, by now you would have understood that there is incoherency in the approach of tribunal and there are many factors at play. Some tribunals give preference to or weightage to some of the factors, and then they sort of put the investors' loss at a pedestal. Some tribunals have kept environmental concern, given higher weightage for environmental concern. So all of these are now decided. From this week onwards, we will discuss about how do we address or integrate environmental principles within the field of international investment law. So from 9th week onwards, we are going into a solution oriented mode, as in, so because of 6th, 7th and 8th week cases, you already know what are the problems that a host state may face for defending the environmental measure, right? So from this week onwards, we will look at what are the ways to strengthen the position of the host state, to enable them to take environmental measure even if it creates an adverse impact on the investor, addressing the challenges of regulatory chill or race to the bottom. So one such thing that will ensure that host states regulatory power, especially its right to regulate in the context of taking a measure for the protection of environment is strengthened, is through including a provision in the investment agreement itself, international investment agreement itself. So it could be in the form of a provision in a bilateral investment treaty, or it could be a provision in a investment chapter in a broader treaty, right? A regional trade agreement and all of that. So we will call that as treaty with investment provision. So anywhere it could be done. This has including a provision to assert the regulatory right of the state, especially in the context of regulating the foreign investment for the protection of the environment, has become very popular these days. Why has it become very popular these days? I mean, we already had this discussion in the context of 5th week of the course. This right flows from the sovereign power, so there's no separate requirement for a host state to assert it explicitly, right? That is also there. We've also looked at interpreting silence in IAS, so there's one separate lecture on interpreting the silence itself. So even if a BIT does not contain an explicit provision, how can a host state assert its regulatory rights? So we have already discussed. So here in this lecture, in the 9th week, we have 3 lectures for this week. So in the 3 lectures, we are going to look at how can a host state strengthen its position for asserting the regulatory right in order to protect the environment. So this provision for protecting the environment, I will also look at some provisions which sort of gives power on the host state to take measures for the protection of public health. I mean, I'm not going to make the fine line distinction between, okay, that's a measure for public health, this is a measure for environment, because any measure that you're going to take for a public health, that may also be an environmental measure as well, right? So in that context, at least for the 9th week, I'm not going to make a very strict distinction between what is a measure for public health or environment. So if we look at the bilateral investment treaties that have been signed, or TIPs, treaty with investment provision, the very first BIT that was signed between our neighbor Pakistan and Germany in 1959 also contained a provision with regard to public health. I mean, it is not something that you find in the main text, but you find it in the context of protocol to the main treaty, which states that any measure taken for the purpose of public health, that will not be considered as discriminatory in the context of Article 2 of the main treaty. Right, at least somewhere, even if it's not in the main text of the treaty, at least in protocol, there was a reference to public health in the very first BIT that was signed between Germany and Pakistan. Okay, so that is there. So then if you look at US-Senegal BIT, this is the first BIT where you will find a provision on public health in the main treaty itself a substantive provision with regard to public health is something that you will find here. So here also what you will find is Article 2.5 of US Senegal BIT, which was signed in 1983. So there was there was a power that was given to the contracting parties to take measure with regard to public health. So with regard to public health, there was a provision under Article 2.5. It was much narrower in scope, but still some provision was there in US Senegal BIT. Then if we look at the 1985 BIT between China and Singapore, we see a broader provision with regard to protection of public health was mentioned in China Singapore BIT, and this is in the year 1985. Right, so it's sort of a broader provision, and maybe for that reason or something, OECD always refers to this BIT to be the first BIT containing a substantive provision for environment. I mean, I do disagree, because if we look at the very first BIT, even if it is in the context of protocol, not in the main treaty, there was a provision for public health, right? And 2 years before the China-Singapore BIT, 1983 US-Senegal BIT also had a provision. So I'm not fully convinced as to why OECD refers to the China-Singapore BIT to be the first BIT. So to contain an environmental provision, I am not sure about it, why do they do so, but still we do see that the BITs did contain some provision with regard to public health or environment and all of that. Now we see a rising number of BITs that contain an explicit provision asserting the regulatory right, especially in the context of protecting the environment and public health. What happened? I mean, from 1985, even if we go with OECD's assumption, from 1985 to now, where did that shift happen? So this is my guess, because we see mostly the treaties that are signed in later part of 2000s to contain such a provision. And what I feel is, in 2005, IIST, the Canadian Research Institute, they came out with a model investment agreement, and their model investment agreement focused on sustainable development. So they probably the treaties that used this model investment agreement as a reference point started including an explicit provision for asserting the regulatory right of the host state to take any regulatory measures for the protection of environment and public health. Right. So I feel that is why the change had happened. There could be another reason also. If we look at Philip Morris versus Uruguay case, here the Switzerland Uruguay BIT was contested one. After signing Switzerland Uruguay BIT, Uruguay also signed a BIT with US. So the provision in US Uruguay BIT contained an explicit carve-out provision, wherein the provision stated that the contracting parties can take regulatory measures for the protection of environment and public health. Specific carve-out was not there in Switzerland Uruguay BIT. So the claimant, Philip Morris, in Uruguay, argued that Uruguay Switzerland BIT does not contain a specific carve-out. So therefore, that should not be considered as an exception. Right. So that measure, will still be considered to be a compensable measure, wherein compensation should be paid to the claimant. So looking at how, the investors can make such sort of an argument and then demanding that an explicit carve-out is not there, which Uruguay has in its other treaties and all of that, it's better to be safe. So I strongly feel that the country should have an explicit provision clarifying that these are the regulatory measures that we can take for the legitimate objectives and all of that. Right. So you should also, after watching this video, I think you should also, read or understand the content of this video in line with one other video that will come in the 11th week of the course on FET clause, because under FET clause, fair and equitable treatment, since it's a very broad clause, generally what happens is the investor can claim anything and everything under the sun to be violative of FET clause. So one of the suggestions that I'll make in that video is that it is better for countries to spell out what is it that what sort of things that they would protect under fair and equitable treatment, right? So one way of drafting a fair and equitable treatment is again talking about or asserting the regulatory power. This is what Commonwealth Secretariat had suggested to draft this. I mean, after drafting the FET provision, while drafting the FET provision, Commonwealth Secretary suggested that add one more provision which says that for greater certainty, any exercise of regulatory power by the contracting parties to take measure for the protection of environment and public health will not be considered as a violation of FET. So maybe we should, understand today's video, this video, with regard to having an explicit provision in the International Investment Agreement, along with the FET video that will come in the 11th week of the course as well, right? Okay, coming back to the discussion on the significance. Now that I've already clarified that it is very significant, right, because Philip Morris have been making this contention, so this is something that has to be present. So if I have studied 329 international investment agreements and I have understood that generally the provisions with regard to environment are of, mostly it is written in an affirmation language, right? So, does not create a binding legal commitment, but it is mostly an affirmational thing. And I could club or categorize these provisions into, one is with regard to preamble. Some of the environmental provision or a language that talks about environmental protection is found in preamble, but I'll discuss it in the last video, right, because preamble does not create any legal commitment, right. So the second thing that we will look at is there's a provision which lays out general obligation with regard to environmental provision. So that is something that I will discuss in today's video, in this lecture. And next thing is, and this is the most popular one, that is the provision is with regard to exception clause. The exception could be either a general exception or it could be particular exception. So in the next lecture I will cover this in detail, and this is the most common form of a provision that you will find in international investment agreements as well. Then some other provision. So that is when I discuss about other provision, that is when I will also cover the preamble. So in certain miscellaneous provision you will find a language in the treaty which talks about protection to the environment. So this is what we are going to discuss. So if I if I dive deep into the question of what is the general obligation that are mentioned in the International Investment Agreement with regard to protection of public health. So if we look at it generally, I mean, I'm only focusing on the first category, that is general obligation, right. So the general obligation that you would find with regard to environmental protection in the International Investment Agreements are host state should not relax or waive environmental standards, right. So BIT will contain a provision which says the contracting party should not relax or waive its environmental standards. That's one provision. Or you will find that it's merely an again affirmation thing saying that the contracting parties have their own right to decide the level of protection for protecting the environment. So basically, it's again, it does not create a legally binding commitment, just that reiterating that right is already possessed by the contracting parties, right. So the BITs will say that the contracting parties can determine their own level of protection of environment, right. So the third one will say that the contracting parties can take any measure to ensure that the investor complies with the environmental standards. And the fourth kind of a thing that you will see in that provision is that, the general obligation provision is that the host state, the contracting parties can take any legal measure in case if the investor fails to comply with the environmental standards. So this is how the wording of the general obligation provisions in an international investment agreement generally goes. If we look at the title of these provisions, the title varies. I mean, you will sometimes find any of the 4 points that we discussed under the heading promotion of investment, protection of investment, treatment of investment, and there are provisions which are titled as public health and environment. So or investment and environment, So there are many headings under which you will find it. So don't be misled by the heading itself. What I have done is I have read every provision of the 329 international investment agreements, and from there I have made this categorization as to where the provisions are there. The 329 treaties I chose from the mapping project of UNCTAD. So UNCTAD, I did this in the year 2019. So there I looked at the mapping project, and UNCTAD had mapped around 2,500 treaties. So what UNCTAD does is it only makes a quantitative assessment, and it had identified that 329 international investment agreements contained a provision with regard to environment. So I picked up those 329 treaties and I made a qualitative assessment as to what sort of a provision that is there. This was not done by UNCTAD, and UNCTAD did not make a qualitative assessment. So out of that, I can safely say that there are many treaties which talks only about general obligation in international investment agreements. So I think this is a sufficient introduction to understand the topic. So in the next video, we will look at what are the provisions, some sort of a sample provisions on the general obligation that you will find in an international investment agreement. Thank you.